It might be a little unusual, but I think a key difference is you introduced me to the technique, it's the concept of technique, and that there was so much science behind swimming, and that really got me in.
Welcome to the Effortless Swimming Podcast, the show that helps swimmers and triathletes love the water, become a better swimmer, and live a better life. Here's your host, Brenton Ford.
Welcome to the Effortless Swimming Podcast. My guest today is Stephen Jackson, and Stephen is a swimmer who I met in Bathurst at the start of 2017. And Steve, you came along to a swim clinic there, and then over the last two and a half years, we've worked together to refine your technique and hopefully make you a faster swimmer, and which you've been able to do so, and really just sort of pick up your swim. So today I want to talk about what you've changed in the last 2.5 years to go from around that 210 mark down to the 140s, and for you, what's really made the difference, and share that to because I think it could certainly help other people. So Steve, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Brenton. Really appreciate being here.
So what was your background as an athlete? You didn't start out as a swimmer?
No, I've got many years, and I hate to admit how many years of running. That was well and truly my background, which doesn't lend itself to switching to swimming because there's no body fat and no buoyancy. But I was a decent marathon runner, had reasonable times there, and then about 3 or 4 years ago now, knee problems, not running related. I got crash tackled playing touch football. The surgeon said, no, can't do anything. Take my fee and buy a push bike. So I bought a push bike, started cycling through 4 years ago, and the natural progression was to go swimming, and that's where we met. And
so now you're doing triathlon, and we're talking before, you're targeting a world spot, hopefully for next year in the 70.3. And so that running background's obviously got to make a huge difference for you, and doing that little bit of cycling's got to help as well. And so what made you make the decision to come along to a clinic 2.5 years ago?
It was the 3rd of June 2017, and I actually went back and had a look at my Strava, and it was very generous of you to say 210s. I was swimming 220s at that stage, if anything, because I just decided to start doing some club tries. And I was at parkrun that morning. I'm a regular park runner to keep the running going. And somebody mentioned that there was a clinic on over at the pool, which is 100 metres away. So I thought, may as well, can't lose anything. And so I just sort of tagged along to see what happened, with the view that I swim like a rock. You know, I'm kind of useless in that space, but I've always viewed my triathlon as that I'm the last out of the water, better on the bike and best on the run. So you spend the whole time passing people, which is great. So it was very much luck of the draw. You were doing clinics in the country. I just happened to be in a town where you were, and I thought I had nothing to lose to see if I could do something to improve my rock-like swimming.
Yeah, and I actually had a look back at some of that footage from back then, and I'm going to do a video for YouTube and just kind of a before and after, just to show some of those differences. And it's a great thing to see, because that original video, as you said, like the legs were quite low, quite probably short with your stroke, and in terms of rhythm and flow with the stroke, it's no way near what it is now. And now the stroke flows really nicely. The legs and the hips are really coming up a lot more. And I mean, that's quite evident with where you're at now with your time. So thinking back over the last 2.5 years, what are some of those things that have helped make the difference for you in that time?
It might be a little unusual, but I think a key difference is you introduced me to the technique. It's the concept of technique, and that there was so much science behind swimming, and that really got me in, because a little bit of swimming I've been doing was, you go and do a K laps and get out of the pool and away you go. But learning that, at the other end of the spectrum, running, you run more, you go faster. Cycling, somewhere in between. Swimming, it's all about technique. Sure that you've got to get fit for it, but it is technique. And your introduction and the way you explained what the technique was, the various bits of it, and gently, you eased me into it, really made the difference. And that hooked me into wanting to find out more and to start to implement some of that stuff. And bit by bit, consistency of getting into the pool regularly and just wanting to work on a little bit more of technique. And as we exchanged videos and talked further about it, it was just it continues to absorb me, that whole trying to understand the whole technique of swimming.
It's really interesting, and I can completely understand. I mean, if you're brand new going to the pool, you've got, all you do is just try and survive and turn the arms around and keep the legs going just to stay afloat and move back and forth. But as you said, there's so much to it, and one of the things I really enjoy is being able to simplify it as much as possible and make it seem really sort of simple, but giving you some step-by-step ways to progress through the stroke. And that's something you've done really, really well. Is like we're kind of at that point where we're continuing to refine some of the aspects of the stroke, and thinking back over the last couple of months, we're working on a little bit less rotation through the upper body to be able to improve the catch. And we've spent time working on being a little more patient in the catch and getting a bit more reach in the stroke and that length in the stroke. And it's an ongoing process, and you're never done. But the good thing about what you've been able to do is you send videos regularly, and we're continually kind of going back and forth. It's like, all right, this thing is improved. This thing might have sort of come back to the old way of doing it, so we want to get back on top of it, and just continuing to refine it that way. And it seems like you enjoy the process of refining the stroke.
It's funny, before that fateful workout with you, the fateful session, my only interest in swimming was finding a set of earphones so I could listen to music or a podcast as I swam. But almost immediately my partner commented that you're looking at paddles, you're looking at pull buoys, you're looking at different goggles, you've got into the equipment, the toys of swimming, and it continues to fascinate me. But yeah, it's a combination of that technique, having someone who picks up little things. Because I look at the video before I send it to you, and then you come back with something totally different. How did I miss that? Which is brilliant. But also having the programs, okay, I got 2K, I want to do 2K, how do I break it up, what goes in there? And that makes a difference, is that consistency of doing that. I'm only 2 or 3 times a week, but boy, it's really, the 2.5 years to go from 220s down to 140s is just something which astounds me. And I've got so much further to go.
Yeah, I had actually someone email me the other day saying he's at the 2-minute mark and he feels like his limit will be 150 because of his height and his stature. And I'm thinking there's no way that 150 is your limit. Like, you're thinking much too small. And when you actually see what can be done, there's no reason why you shouldn't be looking at 140s and 130s and on from there, with the right focus and obviously doing the work as well. And I was speaking to the biomechanist who works with Kate Campbell, and he's working with her, and he said even in Kate Campbell's stroke, there's so much that she can still improve, and he's really excited to work on it. It's like, so if Kate Campbell's got something to work on, there's no excuse for anyone else to say, oh, I think I'm done. I think I'm as good as I can possibly get. And over that time, when it comes to racing and implementing these changes in your stroke into a race, what's your approach now, or how do you find you're able to do that when there's obviously so much to think about, and you're concentrating on a lot when you're training? What's your approach now when it comes to racing? You're still thinking about a lot of that stuff, or you're able to just get into race mode?
No, I'm still thinking about every little bit of it. And as I just did the Western Sydney Half Ironman, and that's a 2K swim. And from the get-go, it's okay, looking at where my hand's going, thinking about my core, lifting the butt up a bit, not kick too much, and it just head rotating, only having one goggle in. It's an ongoing I'm talking to myself the whole way, which is great, because the next thing you know, you're at the end of the swim. But it's, the run, okay, I get into red mist mode, as my partner tells me. The flag goes, I just take off. Cycling is heading that way, and the running carries over well. But none of that, the fitness, the general aerobic fitness, nothing carries over to the swim. So it's all an education and an ongoing education. And I travel a fair bit for work, which is probably the biggest pain in the proverbial, because I miss my swimming, which is if you'd asked me that 3 years ago, that wasn't me. I'm not no way the wise swimmer. It's just weird. You've done weird things there, Brenton. It's all your fault.
Oh well, that's what I'm happy to take responsibility for. But it's good though. Like as soon as you look forward to getting in the pool and you look forward to your swims, it makes such a world of difference. And I can completely understand for any athletes out there who aren't looking forward to the swim. Like if you don't know what's going to make you faster in terms of your stroke and your technique, you kind of get to the pool and like, yeah, you might bang out a good workout, but really there's nothing else to concentrate on apart from the effort you're putting in. But if you know what you can do to get quicker, it's really motivating. And like speaking from my own personal experience, it's like, yeah, that's what's a lot of fun is continuing to refine the stroke and seeing these little improvements over the course of a few months there. And that's really motivating. So it's, I think it doesn't take a lot to have someone look forward to going to the pool. It just takes a little bit of sort of background on what you can do to swim fast and a little bit of background on technique. And for you, what do you do in terms of training compared to what you were doing when you first started? So you mentioned you're following the workouts that we've got in the membership. What were you doing when you first started compared to now?
Oh, before the session with you, I was go down to the pool, maybe swim a kilometre, get out, and that'd be it. And 2:20 pace, and okay, done. Board out of my brain, away we go. But almost instantly after doing the sessions with you, it started to, okay, you've given me these drills to do, and working through the drills, but also understanding what the drills were for and why they were doing them. But the concentrating on one particular, like sinky leg. So my rear end was almost dragging on the bottom of the pool when we started. So working on the core and the kick there was sort of right at the beginning. Then the crossover was really creating issues. Then we started to work on the catch, and we're working on that one now. Core all the time. And now I think recently you've done a poddy on core strength and that need for the connection through the body. And I think that's a really big key one that's not obvious to new swimmers, but it makes such a difference when you think about it as you swim. I can feel my rear end popping out of the water, which is, something is just, to me, amazing. Okay, it's common for most swimmers, but for me, it's amazing.
Oh, look, you speak to 50% of people who are swimming once or twice a week, and if your hips and your legs are up near the surface, it can be magic. So, I was talking to Eni Jones on a podcast about that this morning as well, and we were just talking about like it really all starts with the posture and the ability to engage the core lightly, which kind of sets up the body position. Because without that, you're fighting the water, and without that connection through the core, then you're not going to be able to connect up the catch with the rotation and the kick, and everything's working separately, and that's really hard work. But if you can have that core switched on and you can generate a lot of power from the hip rotation. Very small movement, but a lot that you can generate, and and that's quite evident, I think, when we look at your first video compared to now, and that is really one of those things that's an ongoing process. But is that something that you feel now when you swim compared to before?
Oh, very much so. It's that feel for the water. It's still an evolving exercise, but the feel of the different parts of the body, what they're doing in the water and where they are, it still surprises me when I look at the video that you go, hang on, that's not what I thought I was doing. But when you compare it to 12 months ago, you go, yep, okay, that is working. But that switching on the core is something which I find really, at the moment, is making a big difference to everything. It's just one of those little feelings that trying to get the muscle memory to lock it in. And every so often you go, oh, no, not holding it. And as soon as you hold it, bang, it makes such a difference. And
in the next, say, 12 months, what's your target pace for your half Ironman swim? What do you feel like if you continue to improve your stroke and can fit those workouts in? What do you feel like you can get down to?
Oh, that's how long's a piece of string. It used to be if I could ever swim 140, I'd be tickled pink. But now my Western Sydney was 143, and I think if I can get into the pool more often, that's my biggest challenge. If I can get more time in the water, then 130 is doable. and I'm 62, but regardless, that doesn't matter. It's all age's number. I reckon that why not? 130 is the target on the horizon.
That's great, and I mean, I love hearing from swimmers like yourself, like in your 60s, and you're doing PBs in the water, like continuing to get better, and it's certainly possible. And I know a lot of swimmers who are able to do that, even like people who have swum when they were younger. Like you can still absolutely get faster, and that's it's probably one of the fewer sports where you can do that. If you think of like running, it's probably a little bit more taxing on the body, but with swimming, because it's so technical, you can still continue to get quicker.
Without doubt. My running has certainly slowed down because I can't do the miles anymore because of the knee, but both the cycling and the swimming, but swimming particularly, coming along at leaps and bounds. And so I'm sub 5, I reckon, for Geelong half Ironman, confident of that.
Awesome. Well, all the best for Geelong, and I appreciate you sharing your experience and the things that you've learned over the last couple of years. So, Steve, thanks again for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Brendan. Since 3rd of June 2017, you've taken over my life, you bugger.
I'm happy to, and I'm glad you remember it so clearly, but obviously for the right reasons. So that's a good thing.
Oh, good. Thanks, mate. Talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the Effortless Swimming Podcast. If you'd like us to help you become a faster, more efficient swimmer, go to www.effortlessswimming.com.